Hello, my name is Tamadher Alfahal, and I have just finished my PhD in Art and Design in Birmingham City University in the UK, and soon to rejoin my colleagues in Interior Design program in University of Bahrain. I am happy to take part of this conference today, all the way from UK, as it addresses the relationship between education and practice within the fields of design and architecture. In a similar way, my research explores the relationship between pedagogy and practice, particularly in the context of contemporary Islamic art and design. Today, there is a gap between artistic practice and the social practice of contemporary Islam. Design and architecture that was once reflected the religious practice of everyday life moved from objects in spaces that uses mathematics and alphabets as a language for the creative expression to creative production that either imitate expressions of the past or at many times does not reflect the contemporary aspects of Islamic culture. This has set the stage for developing the hypothesis of my research, which consists of two parts. First, reviewing the philosophical dimensions of traditional Islamic artistic expression to examine its contribution and, if any, continuation in contemporary practice. And the second is investigating an alternative approach that explores ways of regenerating creativity in the contemporary pedagogy and practice of Islamic art and design. So I will begin first by highlighting two of the main literature findings before giving examples on the methodological approaches that have been used. While revisiting the notion of creativity in traditional Islamic philosophy, I found out the following. A group of Muslim philosophers in the 10th century called Ikhwan al-Safa described whoever brings out the form from his mind into a matter as the artificer, the knower, or Asana al-Alam. Interestingly, in their epistles, their use of the term sana, or craft and craftsmanship, derives from the verbal root sana'a, which has the correlated meaning of to do, to curate, to create, and to manufacture. Hence, sana'a is industry, basically. And therefore, in Islamic philosophy, there was no clear distinction between the different kinds of making or creating, or between artists and craftsmen. In other words, there is no such thing as fine arts or applied arts in traditional Islamic philosophy. Another insight highlighted a pedagogical dilemma defining Islamic art and design within the historical field of art and architecture. Fletcher's tree of architecture grouped non-Western styles, such as Chinese and Islamic styles, as other decorative schemes, portraying them as permanently fixed in the medieval past. While the Western architecture heritage, in contrast, is dynamic and historically evolving. Thus, Islamic art has not been taught as subject to time, resulting in first, a clear literature gap that addresses how it responded and interacted with movements such as modernism and postmodernism, and second, a separation between the pedagogy and practice of Islamic artistic knowledge. These findings raised few main questions. If there is no such distinction between art and craft in Islamic tradition, or perhaps between art and design as we know it today, Could there perhaps be a convergence instead, or a collaboration, in other words? How can the role of contemporary artists participate in shaping, informing, and disseminating knowledge of Islamic art and design? And second, how to broaden the pedagogy of Islamic art and design in relation to time and within the current understanding of design culture. And here is where the multidisciplinary collaboration became at the heart of the methodological approach in order to expand ways of artistic knowing, learning, and teaching. So this happened through various artistic explorations, including art residency, conversation toolkit, and design studios. So the art residency was located in Morocco, one of the most prominent capitals for Islamic traditional crafts, where I conducted a semi-structured session with artists and art students to address two main questions: what makes art Islamic, and what makes spaces spiritual? This was curated to strip down the main aesthetic themes or elements with no guidelines in order to validate the literature finding in a setting that allow for creative experiments. Like the process of design studios, the creative process started from exploring the two main questions, then ideation, then experimenting, and finally developing sort of a semi-final work. From the group discussion, participants abstracted the elements or principle of Islamic aesthetics. Then they developed ideas of different mediums all the way to prototyping spaces and sculptures. However, their interpretations are still rooted in their local craftsmanship heritage, in a sense that there was a struggle to completely break away from it. The residency also allowed me to include one-to-one sessions with more master artisans, which added valuable experience to the reflective process of the research. It also offered insights into the notion of tacit wisdom or hikmah carried in our embodied process and its cultural significance in the act of making. So these pilot studies done in the art residency moved me towards the second method, which incorporated the literature findings into a conversation toolkit. The toolkit included 3 decks of cards. Red deck included quotes from literature, while the blue deck are design principles abstracted from literature, and the yellow are artistic mediums or formats such as architecture, furniture piece, or graphic illustration. The participants mix a yellow card once with either a blue or red card, and sometimes with both, and then try to come up with sketches that reflect their contents. The aim of this conversation toolkit was to see how participants view the abstract idea of Islamic philosophy as a clean canvas. How do they understand it, and how do they express it artistically without building their interpretations on historical examples? So these were experimented first by designers and design educators. The results included series of interesting ideas and concepts that are innovative and that doesn't resemble anything historical in the context of Islamic designs. The second group who used the toolkit were artists and PhD candidates based at the School of Art in Birmingham City University. This allowed for discussion and feedback to emerge that was very helpful in my research progress. Things, for example, such as naming the principles in bilingual, like in both Arabic and English, so that both Arabic speakers and English speakers can understand them in parallel ways. And other feedback that included, for example, whether these are applicable or not, whether these can inspire creative expressions or not. So this conversation toolkit set the basis for developing it to take part of an elective course in the interior design program in University of Bahrain. The elective course is called Islamic Ornamentation, and it's dedicated for senior design students. And during that course, these design principles were adapted as basis for micro and macro representations or projects. So in the micro representation project, students created a jewelry piece. The analysis of their mind maps, the recorded thinking process helped in identifying patterns that reveal how they relate and interpret cultural references in their work. So this is an example of the macro representation where the students created 3D renderings for what they believe it can be a spiritual space. So this was inspired by a few verses of the Quran, and as you can see, there is a direct use of historical geometry extruded to form the wall treatments and space fixtures as a cultural reference. So the results of adapting the toolkit structure showcased great potentials in the conceptual stage. However, when it comes to the final rendering of the space, for example, some students felt the need to incorporate geometric patterns and ready-made scripts in order to Islamize their designs. Other students demonstrate different potentials. New ideas emerged and results included more innovative approach to the Islamic culture. So this example is inspired by the story of Mary and it's the cultural significance of the palm tree. And as you can see, it didn't include any forced old geometry or copied calligraphy. So to this end, the results of these artistic explorations offers the potentials of new modes of artistic knowing that are culturally inclusive and which in turn informs and challenges the current pedagogy of Islamic art and design. So that's it for me, and thank you for listening. And if you'd like to carry on the conversations, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.